Everything within, specifically American society, is not an accident. There have been systems and policies in place that have shaped the way that the society looks and the way that the city and county are made up. So my research is looking at the intersection of sports medicine and public health. Sports medicine and public health need to kind of come together a little bit more, especially if we're talking about, having kids be more physically active. And one of the ways that we know that they do that is through sports, especially like sports that are available in schools. Sometimes we don't really think about, or it's not intuitive to think about, okay, is it safe for them to do so? Are we making sure that all these safeguards are in place? And one of those important safeguards is having access to athletic trainers, right? They're the best healthcare professional that is equipped. And they directly contribute to public health initiatives and public health goals. We know that only a third of public schools have full-time athletic trainers, but we need to also dive a little bit deeper into looking to see, okay, does the system inequalities, are those also influencing why and how that lack of access plays out? So I created something called the Sport Diversity Index, which is looking at the variety of sports that are available to different school districts. I was able to map out this diversity index across St. Louis City and St. Louis County to look at, is there a pattern first and foremost, and then what might be things that are contributing to creating that pattern. So I was looking at the funding and looking at the proportion of rent-occupied housing to see, okay, is it that areas that have higher proportions of rent-occupied housing in that school district, I hypothesize that you're going to have a lower number of sports that are offered. And it was disheartening to be right. It was one of those times where I really wanted to be wrong. So that's kind of how I used GIS to kind of now, all right, this is what this pattern looks like. And then when we model the equation, this was correct, right? You have areas that have high rent-occupied housing, they have lower sports or lower diversity of sports that are being offered. Incorporating the athletic trainers into that conversation when we're talking about sports is something that I'm trying to do very intentionally, so that when we're talking about sports and access to sports, we're also talking about this needs to be safe. We need to talk about access to athletic trainers too. Because I think if you are trying to increase access to sports without ensuring that the people that are needed are there, then we're doing a disservice to kids. Working at Roosevelt High School, which also houses Naeed Chapman, which is they have a lot of refugee students. It was great because a lot of the immigrant kids identified with me, even though our stories are very much different of how we ended up here. But I think it's very reassuring when you walk into a place and somebody looks like you, but then also sounds different to everybody else. There's a power to be had within difference and to be able to celebrate each other's differences and the different way that we think and we talk. For me, I'm embracing the power, the difference of GIS, right? Because nobody really talks about applying GIS to sports and to sports medicine. That is not the first thing that people think when they think GIS. But because it's different, because you're coming at it from a completely different framework and point of view, you are now being able to see with clearer eyes, and you're able to reframe this problem and come at it with a solution. And I think we might be surprised at the result that will come when we, embrace the difference of people in our community, and then the difference within professions and the difference within the world.